Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Sally Burdett. Our top stories this hour. Hamas officials arrive in Cairo to study the latest ceasefire proposals, but the attacks go on in Gaza with dozens more killed. Police in Germany say they're holding one person in connection with a mass stabbing in which 3 people were killed. Recovery efforts underway in northeast China with at least 11 people dead in severe flooding. And the torch has been lit for the Paralympics. The flame will begin its journey to Paris from the English village of Stoke, Mandeville. A Hamas delegation has arrived in Cairo to discuss the latest proposal for a ceasefire. They'll hear from mediators following talks between US and Israeli officials. In Gaza, dozens more Palestinians have been killed in what are now daily Israeli strikes across the enclave. Women and children are among the dead in Khan Yunis. Israel has also struck homes and tents in Deir al-Balah and the Nuseirat refugee camp. More evacuations have been ordered in northern Gaza. Our correspondent Akram Al-Satari is in Khan Yunis.
Well, Hamas delegation is in Cairo. They said, and they made it very clear, they're going to Cairo for the sake of being debriefed about the progress that has been made so far with the negotiation and the talks between the mediators from one side, the United States and Israel from the other side. They made it clear as well that they are not going to discuss anything that has to do with the negotiation and that they are expecting a clear and tangible outcome for the negotiation that have been taking place between Cairo, Doha from one side and Israel and the United States from the other time. They seem to be reiterating the importance of seeing something tangible happening, seeing schedules, seeing timelines for the realization of the things that were agreed upon by Hamas and by the American administration, while Biden himself said that Israel accepted the proposal and that was an Israeli proposal. The proposal that was made on the 2nd of July seems to be what Hamas clutches to and that they want something tangible happening. In the meantime, they said as long as Israel is not willing to withdraw from Philadelphia corridor, as long as Israel is not willing to withdraw from Netzarim corridor, there would not be any kind of compromise or agreement, which foretells also that things are still not experiencing a breakthrough that would bring about a ceasefire. Many other complicated issues, such as the number of Palestinian prisoners, Hamas asks for the release of whom if that deal is going to be done or agreed upon, and also the rebuilding of the Gaza Strip and also allowing unlimited number of truckloads into the Gaza Strip for the sake of just starting the rebuilding process without no veto whatsoever from the Israeli side. So there are many explosive things and issues, points of contention that are still unsolved, and I don't think Palestinians are expecting much from that visit.
And yes, within Gaza, the attacks and evacuation orders continue. What is the latest on that front?
Yes, the evacuation orders have been also the trending matter and issue and the hot burning issue for the Gazans, who are also living extremely critical situation under those sounds of the ambulances coming and going, bringing the people who are injured and going back to the areas such as in Hamad City, where they have already retrieved around 17 bodies of Palestinian families who were targeted and killed under the rubble of their houses. The Palestinians are seeing a large-scale operation with also intensified targeting of the homes. In the last 1 hour or so, around 17 Palestinians were killed, while from the morning around 67 Palestinians were killed. In the last 24 hours, 69 Palestinians were killed. The bombardments are reported in Deir al-Balah area that has been seeing increased ground and air operation for the Israeli army, targeting houses, targeting infrastructures, targeting agriculture area, and also asking Palestinians to move. Around 100,000 Palestinians were already moving from the eastern parts of the Gaza central area, namely in Deir al-Balah area. Now people from Al-Maghazi refugee camp, the population of which is around 70,000, with around 100,000 or 200,000 more internally displaced people asked to leave the area, and also some people in East and North and Nusayrat are asked to move. So a very large-scale displacement wave that we have been seeing in the last few days that is expected to continue, and also an increase in the number of Palestinians killed because of the ongoing operations and the targeting in different parts in Rafah, Khan Yunis, Gaza Central area, and Gaza and the North.
Akram Al-Satri in Gaza. Let's get the view from Israel now. Our correspondent Jonathan Regev is in Tel Aviv. Hello, Jonathan. So the latest from the Israeli side on these talks in Cairo. Are hopes increasing for a ceasefire?
No major change over the weekend regarding what can and what can't be expected from the ceasefire talks. Yes, a delegation did come back from Cairo just before the weekend, and negotiations might perhaps go on next week, and voices coming out of Washington suggest that things are progressing. But here in Israel, we've not heard anything indicating that things are progressing or things are going backwards, for that matter. No major change. We do know that in that phone call between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Joe Biden, we also know that Vice President Kamala Harris was also on the call. There was perhaps some acceptance from Netanyahu to withdraw some of the forces on the Philadelphia corridor for a small distance, but Israeli officials are saying that even if this is the case, this is far from being enough for the other side, so nothing indicating that an agreement is about to be reached. We do know, as you mentioned, that a Hamas delegation is in Cairo, is in talk with the Egyptian mediators. This doesn't add anything to optimism or pessimism in Israel, not a major change in that. What is clear is that there's a lot of pressure on the Israeli government to advance things. We know that the pressure is coming from outside, from the United States, and also from inside, especially from hostage families who are demanding from Israel to do more in order to achieve a deal. The weekly Saturday night protests are about to begin, and we will surely hear from the families and their supporters the need to do much more to achieve a deal, because let's remember, out of 109 hostages, some 70 or so are officially alive. As far as Israel knows, there's no intelligence suggesting otherwise, so they're alive, even if the numbers are smaller, such as the estimates are 50 or 60. These are hostages that can be saved, and the families are saying either we reach a deal now and save them now, or for many of them the next time will be too late.
And then, Jonathan, what is the latest from northern Israel, where there's been more exchanges of fire with Hezbollah in Lebanon?
More exchanges of fire, and I have to say that we're seeing them intensifying, not perhaps in the range of the fire. The range is usually according to the rules of engagement, which have been based since October 8th, since the war on that front began. Most of the Hezbollah fire is directed at communities in northern Israel, which are close to the border. But the last 24 hours were rather violent. In Lebanon, we speak of some 10 Hezbollah operatives who have been killed. And in Israel, all over Friday night and early Saturday morning, hours and hours of sirens, of drones and rocket fire. So this is intensifying. We know that the U.S. is putting a lot of pressure on the one hand to signal to Israel that if anything happens, if a war does erupt, then the United States will come to Israel's support. But on the other hand, a very big hope on behalf of the Americans that this does not happen. On this issue, we can say that the chief of the Joint Staff of the United States, General Charles Brown, is in the region. He will arrive in Israel on Sunday and expected to hold talks here and in Egypt as well. With this message, if anything happens from Hezbollah, from Iran, the United States will be here to support Israel. But the United States clearly hopes that Israel makes an extra step in order to facilitate a deal in Gaza, which will also have its implications for the northern border.
All right, thank you. Jonathan Regev in Israel. Ukraine's president has called for retribution against Moscow as his country marks its annual Independence Day. Volodymyr Zelensky says the conflict has returned home to Russia, with Ukrainian troops continuing to advance into Russian territory. In a video address, he warned that anyone attacking Ukrainian land would face consequences. President Joe Biden spoke to Zelensky on Friday, announcing a new U.S. military aid package. Russia and Ukraine have each released 115 prisoners of war in the latest deal mediated by the United Arab Emirates. It's the first exchange since Ukraine launched its attack into Russia's Kursk region on August the 6th. The Russian prisoners were captured during the Kursk offensive, according to Moscow. Police in Germany say they've detained one person in possible connection with a mass stabbing attack in the western city of Solingen. 3 people were killed and 8 others injured in an apparent random attack during a festival in the city. Eyewitness reports say the attacker aimed at people's throats before escaping and going on the run. Let's speak to our correspondent, Natalie Carney in Munich. Hello, Natalie. So one person is being held, but the manhunt continues. What is the latest from the police?
Absolutely. A few hours ago, the police addressed the public as well as the press to mention that they had detained a 15-year-old in connection to the attack. They have not arrested him per se, simply detained him for more questioning and information. According to a witness statement, an unknown person allegedly spoke with this teenager shortly before the attack took place about intentions that would match the crime. So if this man is to be arrested, he may be arrested for not reporting the plot of this attack. Again, the police believe that it is a sole perpetrator who executed this horrific attack in the western German city during what was supposed to be a very festive weekend, with the city celebrating its 650th anniversary. There was expectations of live concerts, events, acrobats, all the great things you can expect from a summer festival. However, that unfortunately was all canceled after this very sad event, which led to the deaths of 3 individuals and 8 others who were injured, 4 of those rather crucially. So at the moment, the manhunt does continue because, again, this 15-year-old is not deemed to be the perpetrator itself, but again, has been detained in early hours of Saturday morning for questioning about the attack, what he may have known, who he knows, if he knows more information about the attacker himself, to advance this investigation and hopefully get the man responsible for this behind bars.
Absolutely. What's been the reaction across Germany?
Obviously, it's been a state of shock, quite frankly. A lot of people waking up on Saturday morning, reading the news that this has taken place, of course, in the city of Solingen itself. There's been reports of a lot of sadness against this. Again, this was supposed to be a very festive, happy weekend. A lot of people very shocked by the news, of course. And this city is unfortunately, it has had some incidences happen before. So one of the big comments that a lot of the German media is saying, that people in the city are saying, here we go again, Solingen in the news again. But as far as comments from the political sphere, let's say, it spans across the political spectrum. You know, you've got people from the Green Party, leaders of the Christian Democratic Union, the Chancellor, of course, from the SPD, saying that they all feel very saddened by the news, are wishing their condolences to the victims and wishing a speedy recovery from those that have been injured. But most importantly, everybody wants this perpetrator caught as quickly as possible, and as German Chancellor Olaf Scholz says, punished to the full extent of the law. So much so, interestingly, before this attack, the German government has been speaking about tightening regulations for knives being carried in public. While it's not too common to have stabbings in this country, we did only a few months ago hear about the killing of a policeman who was knifed to death in the city of Mannheim. And during the Euros football games here in Germany earlier this summer, also an incident of a knifing attack took place in the city of Hamburg.
All right, thanks for that update. That's our correspondent Natalie Carney in Munich. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, As the Paralympic torch is lit, we'll tell you why a small English village is at the heart of the Games.
Ever wondered what's the difference between a bear and a bull market? Where are the cash cows? And who are the lame ducks? And what exactly are black swans? Grey rhinos? And unicorn companies? Make sense of it all with Global Business, only on CGTN.
I think it should be more global cooperation.
I would like to hear more the voice of the developing countries.
Globalization has lifted more than 1 billion people out of poverty.
The green transition has to happen. It's a necessity.
Well, China and the United States are important powers in the world.
What unites us is much more than what divides us. And I believe China is committed to this agenda.
Join me, Juliet Mann, to set the agenda at these times every weekend on CGTN.
Welcome back. A reminder of our headlines. Hamas officials arrive in Cairo to study the latest ceasefire proposals, but the attacks go on in Gaza with dozens more killed. And police in Germany say they're holding one person in connection with a mass stabbing in which 3 people were killed. At least 11 people have died and 14 remain missing after torrential rain triggered heavy flooding in northeast China. Rescue operations are underway in Liaoning province to restore basic infrastructure. Wang Naiqian reports.
Recent heavy rainfall has caused severe destruction in Huludao City, located in northeast China's Liaoning province, with Jianchang and Suizhong County the hardest hit. Roads, power systems, communication networks, homes, and agriculture land have all been significantly affected. Now that the floodwaters have gradually receded, recovery and reconstruction efforts are underway. The G306 National Highway, a water link between Jianchang and Suizhong County, has been heavily damaged by flooding and landslides. The local transportation department constructed a temporary set road, which is capable of handling one-way traffic for large vehicles. In Datuntang, Jianchang County, some power stations are located in steep mountainous areas, making access difficult. Local authorities use helicopters to airdrop equipment to restore electricity, allowing residents to have lighting at night. Over 50,000 relief packages from both inside and outside of Liaoning province have been delivered to the disaster-stricken area, providing much-needed support to those affected. Wang Naiqian, CGTN, Liaoning province.
The Paralympic flame has been lit in Stoke Mandeville, the English village which is known as the birthplace of the Games. Athletes will carry the torch to Paris, with the action due to start in 4 days' time. Our correspondent Rahul Pathak joins us now. Hello, Rahul. So, Stoke Mandeville, centre of attention. Now what happens?
Well, the lighting of what's officially known as the Paralympic Heritage Flame, as you said, has just taken place. It's now begun its 4-day journey to the French capital from the UK to Paris, where it's scheduled to arrive on the 28th of August for that opening ceremony. Now, it's much shorter than the Olympic torch, really. That lasts 68 days. The Paralympic Flames journey is doing something a little bit different, quite innovative, I think. It's going from Stoke Mandeville, as you say, to the Channel Tunnel. It'll then be taken underwater through the tunnel to Calais, and once the flame reaches France, it'll be used to light 12 torches symbolising the 11 days of competition plus the opening ceremony. In all, there'll be around 1,000 torchbearers carrying the flames simultaneously through 50 towns and cities right across France, and it will be passing through regions of the country that have shown a lot of commitment to para-sports and also making sports more accessible and inclusive to people, which is a big message from these Paralympics. But another objective, and I think this is a very, very important point, is to drum up enthusiasm for the Games, because let's be honest, France has been experiencing a bit of a post-Olympic Games come down. So hopefully this will raise awareness and interest for these Paralympic Games. Remember, the first ever Paralympics to be held in France.
So there is a lot to look forward to. Tell us more. What's on the agenda?
Well, it'll certainly be the biggest Paralympics we've ever seen. 4,400 athletes in total from 168 countries and delegations. That's beat the record that was set in Tokyo in 2021. And much like the Paris Olympics, these games will be setting a new standard in terms of gender parity. 1,983 female athletes taking part. That's by far the most in the Paralympics history. Now, in Tokyo, it won't surprise you to learn that China, by far away, were top of the medal table. They won a remarkable 96 gold medals, 207 medals in total. But I think the Chinese will be quite confident, quietly confident, that they can, in fact, beat that record, which is, frankly, quite incredible. Now, as for the city of Paris, well, I was talking about experiencing a bit of a post-Olympic Games lull, with many Parisians traditionally going on holiday around this time of year for their summer holidays. That's possibly contributed to a slight sluggish ticket sales. Paris a little bit quiet at the moment because it's quite empty as they prepare for the Games. At the end of May, just a third of tickets had been sold, which kind of concerned the organisers. So they prompted a huge ad campaign, featured leading French Paralympians, and they were using the tagline, "We aren't missing anything, only you," which is clearly directed at the French public. But, you know, a good point for the Paralympics. A very similar thing happened during London 2012, the London 2012 Paralympics. Nearly half of their ticket sales occurred only after the London Olympics had finished, and that ended up becoming one of the best, in fact, I think it was the best attended Paralympics of all time. Also, those Parisians that I was talking about, most of them will be coming back from their summer holds around the end of August. So hopefully, once that Paralympic opening ceremony gets underway on Wednesday, the crowds, the atmosphere, the excitement will be back up to the levels that we saw at those incredible Olympics just a few weeks ago.
Just 4 days to go to the Paralympics. Thank you very much, Rahul Pathak there. Now, with the Olympic torch having been lit here in the United Kingdom, Jen Copestake tells us more about the small English village where the ceremony was held and why it's known as the birthplace of the Games.
The first modern Olympic Games was held in Athens in 1896. But the Paralympics had a very different start. This is the Stoke Mandeville Stadium, birthplace of the Paralympic Games. It is also here that the International Stoke Mandeville Games took place in parallel with the Olympics before officially joining the Olympic Games for the first time in Rome in 1960. The idea of a parallel games, initially for war veterans recovering from spinal injuries, was the vision of Dr. Ludwig Gutmann, a neurosurgeon working at Stoke Mandeville Hospital. Stripped of his ability to practice medicine in Germany, his incredible story is told in the artifacts and memorabilia kept here, including this letter from the Nazi government, his early medical slides, and collections of medals.
He came to this country as a German Jewish refugee, arriving here in 1939 with his young family, and he was invited by the government to set up the spinal unit in preparation for the D-Day landings.
Dr. Gutmann saw how sport was influencing the rehabilitation of his patients. Inspired by the Olympics, he organized games for 16 wheelchair athletes, 14 men and 2 women, to coincide with the opening of the London Games in 1948.
Gutmann's vision was to host the Games, in the same place in the same year when the Olympics were held, and it grew and grew. 1952. Some Dutch veterans came across and started the first international Stoke Mandeville Games. And then, by the 9th Stoke Mandeville Games, it ended up being in Rome.
The Games were still often referred to as the International Stoke Mandeville Games up until 1984, when they returned here after funding issues meant they couldn't be held in America.
It made a big impact. Local people volunteered their gardens, their homes to host the competitors, and the opening ceremony was, in fact, opened by Prince Charles.
The Paralympic Games have now been held in the same city and venues as the Olympic Games since 1988 in Seoul and 1992 in Albertville. Beyond the Olympics, the legacy of Dr. Gutmann continues here at the sports centre bearing his name.
It's not a landmark place like Mount Olympus, but what happened here is possibly more remarkable of changing society and how society viewed disability.
For those who cannot visit in person, you can access the history of Stoke Mandeville anytime through its online museum. Jen Copestake, CGTN, Stoke Mandeville.
Italian prosecutors have opened a manslaughter probe into the sinking of a luxury yacht off the coast of Sicily in which 7 people died. Officials have told the media there are currently no particular suspects in the investigation and that the captain and crew of the boat are free to leave Italy. Investigators say 6 of the victims had sought refuge on the left side of the boat as it sank on its side. A bomb blast in southwest Pakistan has killed at least 2 children and injured 16 other people. The explosion was near the police headquarters in the city of Pishin. 7 officers are among those injured. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif condemned the attack and expressed deep sorrow for the victims. Around 3 million people have been displaced from their homes as severe flooding continues across Bangladesh and parts of eastern India. At least 14 people are reported dead after rivers broke their banks amid torrential downpours, leaving whole neighborhoods submerged. Bangladesh says close to 200,000 people have taken refuge in emergency shelters. Now, a double dose of Panda charm. Berlin Zoo has welcomed a set of twin cubs born to 11-year-old resident Meng Meng. Our correspondent Peter Oliver reports.
The latest arrivals to Berlin Zoo's Panda Garden announced themselves with a mighty roar. Sort of. However, these cubs, born naked, deaf and blind, have made a huge impact. The twins, born on Thursday afternoon, are the second set of cubs to be born to mother Meng Meng and father Jiao Qing.
I see how professional we are. We are so happy that we have twins. And it's the second time for Germany now to receive giant pandas born in Germany.
The last time the German capital heard the pitter-patter of petite panda paws was Meng Meng's first set of twins, dubbed Pit and Polly by Berliners. They were a huge draw for tourists. The 2 males now live in Chengdu Panda Base in China. The birth of this latest set of panda twins is also a victory for the collaboration between the zoo here in Berlin and Chinese-based panda experts in Chengdu.
It's always feeling good that you have experts around in China and that send very splendid keepers here to us, so we feel extra safe. And if you feel extra safe, I think it's easier to cross fingers that everything is going right here.
It will be a little while before the keepers can determine the gender of the newborns. Once that's established, they will be given names. Then, as long as the cubs remain healthy, we should get a date on when they'll be introduced to the public. Peter Oliver, CGTN, Berlin.
Right, next up is The Agenda. In this week's show, Juliet Mann speaks to some of the most influential players in esports after the IOC announced that the first esports Olympics will be held in Saudi Arabia next year. That's The Agenda right after the World Today at 16:30 GMT here on CGTN. Just a reminder of your headlines once more. Hamas officials arrive in Cairo to study the latest ceasefire proposals, but the attacks go on in Gaza with dozens more killed. Police in Germany say they're holding 1 person in connection with a mass stabbing in which 3 people were killed. And that's the World Today. Thanks so much for watching. More news at the top of the hour. For now, from all of us here in London. Bye.